The chosen one among the stars. Ethan Carter woke up with a sharp headache. His body felt heavy, his mind foggy. The air around him was thick with strange scents, floral, metallic, something almost electric. He tried to move, but the moment he did, a wave of gasps filled the space around him. Slowly, his vision cleared. He was in a massive temple, towering pillars stretching toward the sky, glowing symbols carved into smooth golden walls. The floor beneath him was polished stone, reflecting the flickering light of floating lanterns. Then he noticed them, hundreds of aliens kneeling before a throne. Their eyes were not on the throne, though. They were all staring at him. Ethan's heart pounded. He wasn't supposed to be here. The last thing he remembered was working on a ship's warp engine. A sudden flash of light. Then this. But before he could make sense of anything, a figure stepped forward from the throne. She was the most breathtaking being he had ever seen. Tall and elegant, with glowing silver eyes, skin marked with golden patterns that shimmered as she moved. Her long, flowing hair seemed to float as if touched by an invisible wind. A flowing, celestial robe draped over her, making her seem almost like an angel. The aliens surrounding them bowed their heads as she approached. But she was not looking at them. She was looking at Ethan. "You came," she whispered. Ethan stiffened. She was speaking English. The entire hall remained silent, waiting. It felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. The woman stopped just inches from him, tilting her head as if studying his face. Then, to Ethan's absolute confusion, she smiled. "I have waited for you, Ethan Carter." The high priest of the temple, a tall, armored alien with glowing blue skin and sharp, curved horns, stepped forward, eyes burning with fury. "Your Majesty," the priest said carefully, his voice low but sharp. "This human, why do you address him so?" The woman's gaze never left Ethan. She lifted a hand, and the entire crowd bowed lower. "This man," she said, her voice like music laced with power, "is the one I have seen in my visions. He is the only one who has ever touched my soul." Ethan's brain short-circuited. What? The whispers in the crowd turned into panicked murmurs. The aliens who had worshipped this woman like a goddess were now struggling to understand. A low growl came from the high priest. "But Your Majesty, you are divine. You belong to the Zephyrians. You belong to us." "No," the woman corrected softly. "I belong to him." Ethan's entire body tensed. This was not good. The high priest's hands clenched into fists. "He is an outsider. He is unworthy. You must let him go." Ethan finally found his voice. "Look, lady, I don't know what's happening, but I think there's been a mistake." "I don't." She turned to him, and for the first time, he saw sadness in her eyes. "There is no mistake," she said. "I have seen you in my dreams since I was a child. I knew you would come." Ethan opened his mouth to protest again, but then he noticed the way the aliens were looking at him now. Some were furious, others were jealous. Many were afraid. "This is unacceptable," the high priest roared, his voice shaking the temple walls. "A mere human cannot hold the heart of our goddess." The aliens around them stood up, their movements no longer respectful. Their worship had turned into something else. Danger. Ethan felt his stomach drop. This was bad. Really bad. The high priest took a step closer. "Give up this foolishness, Your Majesty. Do not destroy what we have built for a mere human." The woman, Soraya, stood tall, her expression calm, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air. "I will not abandon him," she said firmly. "If I must choose between the stars and him, I choose him." The entire hall erupted into shouts of outrage. The high priest's eyes darkened. Then he must be removed. Ethan barely had time to react before guards rushed toward him. He took a step back. Wait, let's not." Soraya raised her hand. A blinding pulse of golden light exploded from her palm, sending the guards flying backward. The hall fell into dead silence. Ethan's breath came in fast, uneven bursts. Okay, that was unexpected. Soraya grabbed his wrist. "We need to leave," she whispered urgently. Ethan glanced at the furious crowd of aliens and made the quickest decision of his life. "Yeah, let's go." With one final look at the people who had worshipped her, Soraya turned her back on them all. Holding onto Ethan's hand, she ran. The wrath of a betrayed civilization. Ethan ran. The echoing footsteps of alien guards pounded against the marble floors behind him. The golden glow of Soraya's temple lights flickered wildly as she pulled him forward, her grip firm but trembling. Ethan's brain was still trying to catch up. 1 second, he had been waking up in some alien temple. The next, he was being told that an entire species worshipped a woman who had apparently chosen him. A nobody, a human engineer who just wanted to fix ships, not be in the middle of some cosmic love story. The temple doors burst open ahead of them. A gust of cool night air hit Ethan's face as they emerged onto a massive floating city, suspended high above an ocean of glowing mist. The buildings around them were smooth, crystalline, their surfaces reflecting the swirling constellations above. A colossal bridge extended from the temple, connecting it to the rest of the city. But before they could reach it, the temple alarm blared, a deep, vibrating hum that rattled Ethan's bones. "Stop them!" a voice roared behind them. Ethan turned to see Zephyrian warriors, tall, armored beings with glowing energy weapons, rushing after them. Soraya spread her arms, her golden markings flaring with power. The ground beneath them shook, and suddenly, the bridge collapsed behind them, separating them from the warriors. Ethan stumbled but kept running. Soraya clenched her jaw. "They won't stop, Ethan. They will hunt us to the ends of the galaxy." "Great," Ethan muttered. "That's exactly what I wanted today." Soraya ignored his sarcasm, leading him down a winding pathway that cut through the city's upper levels. More alarms rang through the streets, and Ethan could hear distant voices shouting orders. The entire civilization was turning against them. They reached a hover platform, a floating vehicle docked at the edge of a plaza. Soraya hurried inside, activating the controls with a wave of her hand. Ethan hesitated, looking back. Below them, in the city's center, a massive hologram of Soraya flickered into existence. The high priest's voice echoed across the sky. "The goddess has fallen. She has chosen the enemy. Seize them both. Let no human corrupt our future." Ethan exhaled sharply. "That's bad." "Ethan, get in," Soraya shouted. Not needing any more convincing, he jumped into the hovercraft just as Soraya lifted it into the air. Betrayal from within. They soared over the city, weaving between floating structures and towering spires. The skies were soon filled with Zephyrian patrols, sleek silver ships with glowing blue thrusters. Ethan gritted his teeth. "They're not going to let us leave, are they?" Soraya shook her head, her hand steady on the controls. "Not without a fight." The hovercraft's console flashed red. A warning. "Energy locks detected," Soraya muttered. "They're trying to disable the ship." Ethan's stomach twisted as a bolt of blue light struck their craft. The vehicle shuddered violently, and the engine failed midair. The hovercraft spiraled downward, crashing into a lower district of the city. Ethan braced for impact as they hit the ground with a jarring thud. For a second, everything was silent except for the distant wailing of alarms. Ethan groaned, rubbing his head. That was fun. Soraya coughed, pulling herself up. "We have to keep moving." They stumbled out of the wreckage into a narrow street, surrounded by massive alien towers. The buildings here were different, darker, more industrial, and filled with Zephyrians who weren't dressed in ceremonial robes like the ones in the temple. Instead, they wore scavenged armor, makeshift gear, and carried weapons. Ethan immediately felt dozens of eyes locking onto them. Soraya tensed. "We're in the lower district, not a safe place." Before Ethan could ask what that meant, a figure stepped out of the shadows, a Zephyrian warrior in battle-worn armor, his piercing silver eyes filled with betrayal and pain. "Soraya," he said coldly, "I never thought I'd live to see the day you abandoned your people." Ethan felt Soraya freeze beside him. She whispered the name Vale. Ethan didn't like the way she said it. There was history here. Vale narrowed his eyes at Ethan. "And this is the human. The one you would throw away a throne for." Ethan put up his hands. "Look, man, I don't even know what's going on. I didn't ask for any of this." Vale ignored him. His gaze stayed on Soraya. "The high priest declared you a traitor. The people you once protected want you dead. Do you really think you can run?" Soraya took a slow breath. "I never wanted power, Vale. I never wanted to be worshipped." Val's face twisted in anger. "You think they care about what you want. You belong to them. You are their future, and you're throwing it all away for a human who will never understand what you've given up." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "I'm standing right here." Vale finally looked at him, his expression dark and unreadable. "You don't deserve her," he said, "and I won't let you take her." Ethan barely had time to react before Vale moved like lightning, drawing a blade from his hip. Soraya's hand shot up, catching the weapon mid-swing. Golden light erupted from her palm, knocking Vale backward. The surrounding Zephyrians stepped forward, their weapons drawn. Ethan clenched his fists. This was about to get ugly. Soraya turned to him, her expression hard. "Run, Ethan." He hesitated. "What about you?" Her voice softened. "I'll find you. I promise." But Ethan wasn't sure he believed that. The lower district exploded into chaos as Soraya unleashed her full power, battling her own people while Ethan ran into the unknown. As he disappeared into the shadows, one thought burned in his mind. Why did Soraya choose him? And would she survive her own betrayal? Hunted across the stars, Ethan ran, his breath ragged, his mind racing. The lower district of Zephyria was a maze of towering buildings, metal walkways, and flickering neon lights. He had no idea where he was going. All he knew was that Soraya was fighting for her life, while he had no choice but to escape. The distant sounds of battle raged behind him. The golden flashes of Soraya's power illuminated the dark alleys, followed by the sharp hum of energy weapons firing. Ethan cursed under his breath. He should have stayed. But Soraya had made him promise to run. Now he was alone in a hostile city, being hunted by an entire alien civilization that worshipped her, but hated him. The shadow of the betrayer. Ethan ducked into a narrow alley, pressing himself against a cold metal wall. His heart pounded as Zephyrian patrols passed by, their hover drones scanning the streets. The high priest had made his declaration clear. Soraya was a traitor. Ethan was the reason why, and they would both pay for it. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow. He needed to find a way out of this city. A low growl made him freeze. Slowly, he turned his head and saw a Zephyrian standing at the alley entrance. It wasn't just any Zephyrian. It was Vale. His silver eyes gleamed with fury. His battle-worn armor was scorched from Soraya's attack, but he was still standing. "You're a fool," Vale said, his voice sharp as a blade. "Running won't save you." Ethan swallowed hard, his mind racing for options. "I don't want to fight you." Vale laughed, stepping closer. "Fight me? Human, you wouldn't last 10 seconds. Ethan backed up, searching for an escape route. But before he could move, Vale lunged forward with inhuman speed. Ethan barely dodged as a blade sliced through the air, missing his face by inches. He hit the ground, rolling out of the way as Vale came at him again. Ethan knew he couldn't win. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't Soraya. He was just a human with no weapons, no armor, and no powers. But he wasn't ready to die either. Desperate, Ethan grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung it. Vale caught it with one hand and ripped it away, tossing it aside like it was nothing. "You don't deserve her," Vale spat, slamming Ethan against the wall. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Yeah, well, I didn't ask for any of this. Vale raised his blade for the finishing blow. Then the explosion hit. The entire alley shook as a shockwave of golden energy tore through the sky. A blinding pillar of light erupted in the distance, sending a ripple through the city. Val's grip loosened just enough for Ethan to react. With every ounce of strength, he headbutted Vale in the face. Vale staggered back, growling in pain. Ethan didn't wait. He ran, a desperate escape. Ethan sprinted through the industrial underbelly of the city. The explosion had thrown Zephyrian patrols into chaos, but it wouldn't last long. He needed to get off this planet. He needed to find Soraya. He reached a massive docking bay, where alien ships hovered in loading zones. Merchant vessels, military patrols, but one ship stood out. A rugged, heavily modified freighter, its hull patched with different metals, its thrusters humming ready for departure. A smuggler ship. Ethan ran toward it, but just as he reached the entrance, a large alien stood in his way. Tall, muscular, with dark crimson skin and 4 arms, the alien smuggler narrowed his glowing yellow eyes at Ethan. "Where do you think you're going, human?" Ethan raised his hands, panting. "Listen, buddy, I just need a ride out of here." The smuggler crossed his arms. "And what do you have to pay with?" Ethan hesitated. His pockets were empty. He had nothing. But before he could answer, the docking alarms blared. "All non-authorized ships, stand down. The human fugitive is in the area." Ethan cursed. The guards were coming. The smuggler eyed him, then sighed. "You've got trouble, don't you?" Ethan nodded. "Big trouble." The smuggler smirked. "Good. I like trouble." Before Ethan could react, the smuggler grabbed him by the shirt and yanked him inside the ship. The freighter's engines roared as the ramp closed behind them. Across the stars, the ship shot into the sky, just as Zephyrian warships descended upon the docking bay. Energy cannons fired, but the freighter was already breaking through the planet's upper atmosphere. Ethan stumbled into the cockpit, gripping the side of a control panel. The smuggler was already piloting, his 4 hands working the controls effortlessly. "What's your name, human?" he asked, smirking. Ethan caught his breath. "Ethan. Ethan Carter." The smuggler nodded. "Name's Doran. Welcome aboard the Black Horizon." Ethan looked out the window as the planet of Zephyria shrank beneath them. The realization hit him like a freight train. He had escaped, but Soraya was still down there, alone. He turned to Doran. "I need to go back." Doran laughed. "Back? Are you insane?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "She saved me. I can't just leave her." Doran studied him for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "You really care about this alien goddess, don't you?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Yes." Doran sighed. "Well, I hope you have a plan, because the Zephyrians will be coming for you." Ethan stared out into the endless void of space. He had a promise to keep, and he would find Soraya, no matter what it took. The trial of the gods. Ethan Carter had never felt more helpless in his life. The Black Horizon drifted through the vastness of space, the stars stretching endlessly around them. But his mind wasn't on the stars. It was on Soraya. He stared at the planet Zephyria below, a golden blue world glowing like a jewel in the black void. Somewhere down there, she was alone, hunted, betrayed by her own people because she had chosen him. He had to get back. "Thinking about that goddess of yours." Ethan turned to see Doran, the 4-armed smuggler, leaning against the cockpit door. His yellow eyes studied Ethan with an amused expression. "I need to go back," Ethan said. Doran chuckled. "You just got out of there alive. You sure you want to go back for her? It's suicide." Ethan exhaled sharply. "She risked everything for me. I can't just abandon her." Doran folded 2 of his arms, using the other 2 to start up the ship's navigation system. "Well, you're in luck. I know a way back in." Ethan's heart leaped. "You do?" Doran nodded. "But it won't be easy. Zephyria is now on high alert. Every ship that enters their atmosphere is scanned. If they see you, you're dead before you touch the ground. Ethan frowned. Then how do we get past their defenses? Doran smirked. We don't go through them. We go under. Ethan blinked. Under. Doran pulled up a holographic map of Zephyria. There's a hidden smuggler's route through the underbelly of the planet. Old tunnels beneath their ancient cities. It's dangerous, unstable, and full of things that want to eat you. He grinned. Perfect place for a rescue mission. Ethan clenched his fists. Then let's go. Captured and condemned. While Ethan and Doran prepared to infiltrate Zephyria, Soraya was fighting for her life. She had managed to escape the lower district, but it hadn't lasted long. She was tired, weakened. The battle with Vale had drained her. Her golden energy flickered around her like a dying flame. And now she was surrounded. Zephyrian guards stood in a tight formation, their weapons aimed at her. In front of them, the high priest stood tall, his eyes burning with cold fury. You have betrayed us, Soraya, he said, his voice echoing through the temple ruins. Soraya raised her chin, though her body trembled. I have betrayed no one. I only chose my own path. The high priest stepped forward. You were our goddess, our leader, and you would throw it all away for a human. Soraya took a slow breath. Yes. The crowd hissed in outrage. The high priest's expression darkened. Then you will face the trial of the gods. Before Soraya could react, the guards lunged forward, their energy restraints snapping around her wrists. She collapsed to the ground, her power drained, her vision blurring. The last thing she heard was the high priest's voice. Tomorrow, you will answer for your sins. The trial begins. Ethan and Doran reached Zephyria's lower tunnels just before dawn. Using stealth cloaking, they slipped past patrolling warships and automated turrets. The tunnels beneath the city were ancient, filled with crumbling ruins and forgotten machines. Ethan's heart pounded. He had no idea how much time Soraya had left. And then, Doran's console flashed. There she is, Doran said, pointing to a large structure at the heart of the city. They've brought her to the Grand Tribunal. Ethan swallowed hard. What's that? Doran's expression darkened. It's where they hold the trial of the gods. It's not a trial. It's a public execution. Ethan felt his stomach drop. We need to move. Now. The trial of the gods. The Grand Tribunal was packed with thousands of Zephyrians. The air was heavy with tension as the high priest stood on the grand platform, looking down at Soraya, who was bound in glowing chains. Before her, a massive stone altar stood at the edge of a dark abyss. The gods demand justice, the high priest proclaimed. You, Soraya, have chosen to betray your people, to abandon your duty. For this crime, you shall be cast into the void. The crowd roared. Some cheered. Some wept. Some stood in shocked silence. Soraya closed her eyes. She had known this was coming. She had made peace with it. She had no regrets. But as the guards dragged her toward the abyss, a voice cut through the crowd. Stop. The entire tribunal froze. Soraya's eyes snapped open. Ethan Carter stood on the platform, covered in dust, breathing hard, but alive. The high priest's eyes widened in pure disbelief. This is not possible, he whispered. Ethan didn't care. He marched forward, his fists clenched. You want justice, he shouted. Then you need to hear the truth. The crowd murmured. Ethan turned to them. She never betrayed you, he said, his voice strong. She just wanted to be free. She didn't ask to be your goddess. She didn't want your throne. All she wanted was to live her own life. The high priest scowled. She is bound by prophecy. She is meant to lead us. Then maybe your prophecy is wrong, Ethan shot back. The high priest's expression twisted in rage. You dare speak against the gods. Ethan took a deep breath. Now or never. I don't believe in your gods, he said. I just believe in her. The crowd gasped. And for the first time, some of them hesitated. The high priest clenched his fists. Enough. He is an outsider. He has no voice here. He raised his hand to the guards. Kill him. The Zyphirian warriors moved forward. Ethan braced himself. Then, boom, the sky exploded. Ships descended from the heavens, but they weren't Zyphirian warships. They were Doran's people, the outlaws, the smugglers, the exiles, and they were here for war. The high priest turned in shock. Impossible. Ethan used the distraction. He lunged for Soraya, ripping the chains off her wrists. She collapsed into his arms, weak but alive. Ethan, she whispered. I told you, he said, smiling. I wasn't leaving without you. The sky burned. The battle for Zephyria had begun, a war for love and freedom. The sky tore apart with fire and fury. Zephyrian warships scrambled to react as Doran's fleet of smugglers and exiles descended upon the Grand Tribunal. Energy cannons roared to life, golden shields flaring against the incoming attacks. Explosions lit the sky in bursts of orange and blue, the shockwaves rattling the very foundation of the temple. Ethan barely had time to react as the battle erupted around him. Soraya, still weak from the trial of the gods, leaned heavily against him. Her golden eyes flickered, her body trembling with exhaustion. Ethan gripped her tightly. I've got you. Her breath was shallow. I never expected you to come back. He gave her a half-smile, though fear gnawed at his heart. I didn't exactly plan on letting you die. The high priest was staring at them, his expression frozen between shock and fury. You, he breathed, voice filled with pure hatred. You ruined everything. Ethan stood his ground. No, you ruined everything when you tried to take her life for something as stupid as a prophecy. The high priest's face twisted with rage. He lifted his arms, and the entire temple rumbled. The gods demand order, he thundered. And if Soraya refuses to lead Zephyria, then I will do it in her place. Golden energy swirled around him. His eyes burned with divine fire, his body ascending into the air as power surged through him. The Zyphirian warriors surrounding them fell to their knees in reverence. He's tapping into the ancient power, Soraya whispered, the kind only the high priest is meant to wield. Ethan stared. That's bad, isn't it? Soraya exhaled weakly. Very. The entire temple trembled as the high priest raised his hands toward the heavens. A massive rift opened in the sky, and from it, a monstrous entity began to emerge. The crowd gasped in horror. Even the Zyphirian warriors, once so loyal, staggered back. Ethan's blood ran cold. What the hell is that? Soraya's eyes widened in pure terror. The last sentinel. Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. That name alone sent a chill through his bones. The creature descended from the rift, its massive form twisting and shifting like living shadows. It had no face, no distinct body, just a swirling mass of energy and darkness, its limbs constantly changing shape. The high priest's voice echoed through the tribunal. Witness the power of the gods. If Soraya will not lead, then I shall cleanse this world and rebuild it in my image. The crowd screamed. The Zyphirian warriors hesitated, and Ethan knew they were out of time. The last stand. Ethan tightened his grip around Soraya, his mind racing. We need to stop him, he said. Soraya, still weak, struggled to stand. I don't know if I have enough power left. Ethan glanced at the high priest, whose body was now completely engulfed in divine energy. The sentinel loomed behind him, growing stronger by the second. He swallowed hard. Then I'll do it. Soraya snapped her head toward him. Ethan, no. He turned to face her. I don't have powers. I don't have a prophecy. But what I do have is a ship, a fleet, and the ability to cause a hell of a distraction. She grabbed his arm, her golden eyes filled with fear. If you go out there alone, you'll die. Ethan cupped her face gently. Then I guess I better make it count. Before she could stop him, He turned and ran. Fighting a god, Ethan sprinted across the battlefield, dodging falling debris and explosions. Zypherian rebels had started to turn against the high priest, fighting alongside Doran's smugglers in a full-scale civil war. Ethan pushed forward, laser fire streaking past him. The high priest floated above the chaos, his eyes glowing with inhuman power. The sentinel curled around him like a monstrous shadow, its form unstable but impossibly massive. Ethan reached the temple's control panel, a massive console that powered the entire city's energy grid. If he could overload it, maybe, just maybe, he could cut off the high priest's power before the sentinel fully emerged. His fingers flew across the controls. Access denied. Ethan cursed. The high priest's voice thundered. You cannot stop destiny, human. Ethan gritted his teeth. Watch me. A Zypherian warrior lunged at him from the side. Ethan barely managed to roll away before grabbing a discarded energy weapon and firing. The shot hit the warrior's armor, sending him sprawling. Ethan turned back to the console. He had one last idea. A desperate gamble. Doran's voice crackled through Ethan's communicator. Ethan, whatever you're doing, do it fast. We can't hold them much longer. Ethan inhaled sharply. I need you to fire everything you've got at the central power core. Doran hesitated. You're standing right next to it. Ethan exhaled. Yeah, I know. A long pause. Then Doran said, You're insane. Ethan smirked. That's what they keep telling me. Seconds later, the sky erupted with fire. Doran's fleet fired a barrage of missiles at the temple's energy core. The entire city shook as a massive explosion ripped through the battlefield. The energy surge interrupted the high priest's connection to the sentinel. The monstrous entity let out a piercing scream, its form collapsing in on itself. The high priest, suddenly powerless, fell from the sky. Ethan dove for cover just as the temple's control panel overloaded, sending out a shockwave of golden energy. And then, silence. Victory and loss. Ethan coughed, pulling himself out of the wreckage. Smoke filled the air. The battlefield was silent. The high priest lay in the rubble, his power completely drained. His once mighty presence now broken and defeated. The sentinel was gone. Doran's ships hovered above, their weapons now lowered. And in the middle of it all, Soraya stood. She was bruised, battered, but alive. Ethan staggered toward her. She saw him, and ran. They collided, her arms wrapping tightly around him. I thought you were gone, she whispered. He chuckled weakly. You're not getting rid of me that easily. She pulled back, tears in her golden eyes. The war is over. Ethan glanced at the ruined city, at the Zephyrians who now looked at Soraya not as a goddess, but as a leader. No, he said softly, it's just beginning. Above them, the stars shimmered. A new future had begun. The fall of a civilization. The fires of battle still burned across Zephyria. The once glorious floating city now trembled under the weight of destruction. Shattered spires leaned dangerously, their glowing sigils flickering like dying embers. The great temple, which once stood as a symbol of divine power, was now a crumbling ruin, its golden walls blackened with smoke. And at the heart of it all stood Soraya and Ethan, a goddess without a throne and a human who had defied an empire. Ethan's body ached from the fight. His clothes were torn, his arms bruised. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs, but he was still standing. That was all that mattered. Soraya, though stronger now, looked haunted. She turned, gazing at the destruction around her. This was never what I wanted, she murmured, her golden eyes dim with sorrow. I never wanted war. I never wanted to rule over them. I just wanted to be free. Ethan exhaled. Freedom always comes at a cost. The sound of marching footsteps interrupted them. The remaining Zypherian warriors gathered in the temple ruins, their armor scorched, their weapons still in hand, but there was no more rage in their eyes, no more fanatic devotion. Just out. One of the warriors, a battle-worn captain, stepped forward. He studied Soraya, then glanced at the fallen high priest, still lying unconscious among the rubble. Finally, he spoke. "Our goddess has fallen," he said. "And yet, she stands before us." The warriors exchanged glances, uncertain. Soraya took a step forward, her voice firm, but gentle. "I was never meant to be your goddess. I was never divine. I am just like you. I bleed like you. I feel pain like you. And I refuse to let your future be decided by those who seek to control you." She gestured to the ruined temple. "This was never meant to be a cage. We are meant to rise beyond this, not as worshippers or rulers, but as a people together." The silence stretched. Then, the battle-worn captain fell to one knee. One by one, the other warriors followed. Not in worship, not in submission, but in respect. Ethan watched, his chest tight. He knew what this meant. Soraya had won, not through war, not through power, but by choosing her own destiny. The high priest's last gamble. A sharp cough broke the silence. The high priest stirred, his face twisted with pain and fury. His once glowing robes were now torn and bloodied, his power drained. And yet, when he opened his eyes, they still burned with hatred. "You think this is over," he rasped. "You think the gods will allow this blasphemy?" Soraya turned to him, her expression unreadable. "The gods had nothing to do with this," she said softly. "You were the only one who refused to change." The high priest laughed bitterly, coughing as he tried to push himself up. "You naive child. You may have won the hearts of these weaklings, but there are forces beyond this world that will not accept your defiance. The true rulers of this galaxy will come, and when they do..." A gunshot echoed through the air. The high priest froze. His eyes widened. He looked down to see a smoking hole in his chest. Behind him, standing with a still smoking pistol, was Vale. Ethan's breath caught. The warrior, once Soraya's most loyal protector, now stood over the high priest's dying form, his face emotionless. "The old ways die today," Vale said coldly. The high priest gasped one last time, then collapsed into the rubble. Dead. The silence that followed was heavy. Vale met Soraya's gaze. "I was a fool to follow him for so long." Soraya studied him carefully. "And now?" Vale exhaled, sliding his weapon back into its holster. "Now, I follow my own path, just like you." For the first time, Soraya nodded in approval. Zephyria's future had changed forever. A farewell beneath the stars. Later that night, Ethan stood on a high balcony, watching the city from above. The fires had been put out, the battle over, but the scars of war would take years to heal. Doran approached, arms crossed. "You did it, human." Ethan smirked. "Yeah? Didn't feel like I did much." Doran chuckled. "You helped a goddess rebel against her own people. You survived a holy war. And now you get to fly off into the sunset like some kind of hero." Ethan's smirk faded. Because the truth was, he wasn't sure he could stay. Soraya had a new world to rebuild. Zephyria needed her. But Ethan, he was just a wanderer. Before he could say anything, he felt a warm presence behind him. Soraya. She walked up beside him, looking out at the horizon. "You're thinking about leaving," she said softly. Ethan sighed. "You know me too well already." She turned to face him. And for a long moment, they just stood there, the stars above them, the ruins below. "You don't have to go," she said. "Not if you don't want to." Ethan swallowed. "Soraya, this is your home. These are your people. You fought for them. You earned this." She reached out, taking his hand. "You were a part of this too," she whispered. His chest tightened. "I don't belong here," he admitted. "I'm not a warrior. I'm not a leader. I'm just a guy who fixes ships." Soraya smiled softly. "Then stay and fix this world with me." Ethan let out a shaky breath. "And if I leave?" her fingers curled around his. "Then I will find you, no matter where you go." He hesitated. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. But as he looked into Soraya's golden eyes, he knew one thing for sure. Wherever he went, she would always be a part of him. A choice awaits. As the twin moons rose over the shattered city, Ethan Carter stood at a crossroads. Stay or go. No matter what he chose, one thing was certain. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning. A love that defied the stars. The wind was different now. Once, the air of Zephyria had carried the weight of worship, control, and tradition, a people bound to an ancient belief that dictated their every action. But now, after the fall of the high priest and the destruction of the temple's control, something new drifted through the ruined city. Freedom. Ethan Carter stood atop the remains of a great floating spire, looking over the shattered skyline of Zephyria. The stars above shone brilliantly, scattered across the void like 1,000 open doors to the unknown. But tonight, they felt distant. His heart was heavy. He had fought for his life, for Soraya, for a future he wasn't even sure he was a part of. And now, with the war over, a new question loomed before him. Where did he belong? Rebuilding the future. In the days following the high priest's fall, Soraya had taken the first step toward rebuilding Zephyria, not as a goddess, but as a leader. She refused to rule. She refused to be worshipped. Instead, she stood before her people, free of her divine chains, and told them the truth. I was never meant to be your goddess. I was never a deity, never an immortal being destined to lead you. I was only a woman, bound by expectations I never asked for. But today, I choose my own destiny, and so should you. The city listened. Not all accepted it. Many were afraid. But some, many, in fact, began to see the truth. The old ways were crumbling, and a new world was taking shape. Ethan had watched her stand before thousands of Zephyrians, her voice filled with strength and sorrow, knowing that this moment was something far bigger than just the two of them. This was history, and he had no place in it. The conversation that changed everything. On the eve of Zephyria's rebirth, Ethan sat at the edge of a crumbling platform, staring at the horizon. The stars were calling him back. He had spent his entire life moving from place to place, never belonging anywhere. And now, for the first time, he had a reason to stay. But was it the right choice? A familiar presence settled beside him. Soraya. She sat quietly, the glow of her golden markings dim, but still pulsing with warmth. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she finally said. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "You always know what I'm thinking before I even say it." She smiled softly. "You don't belong here." It wasn't a question. It wasn't accusation or sadness. Just a fact. Ethan sighed. "I don't think I ever did." Soraya turned to him, and for the first time, her voice held a hint of uncertainty. "Do you want to?" The question hit harder than he expected. Did he? He had risked everything to save her, to stand at her side when it mattered most. And yet, even as Zephyria rebuilt itself, he still felt like an outsider looking in. "I don't know," he admitted. "This place needs you, Soraya. They need someone to help them figure out what comes next. And me. I don't know where I fit in." Soraya was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out, her fingers curling around his. "Wherever you go, Ethan Carter," she whispered, "I will find you." His throat tightened. "I don't want you to have to choose between them and me," he said. Soraya tilted her head. "Who said I have to choose?" He frowned. "They need you. They need a leader, not a goddess," she interrupted. "And I am not the only one who can guide them now. Vale, Doran, the Zephyrian rebels, they all have a role to play. I don't have to do this alone." She squeezed his hand. "But if I lose you, Ethan, I will be alone." Ethan stared at her, his heart pounding. This was it. The choice. Stay and become a part of something new. Leave and go back to a life of wandering. For so long, he had thought that staying in one place meant losing himself. But now, for the first time, he wasn't so sure. The final decision. Dawn broke over Zephyria. The golden sky shimmered, bathing the ruins in soft, warm light. Ethan stood on the edge of a landing platform, staring at the sleek freighter that would take him away. Doran leaned against the ship, arms crossed. "So, what's the plan, Carter? You flying out of here? Or are you about to tell me you've decided to become a prince of Zephyria?" Ethan smirked. "Pretty sure they'd throw me off the throne in 5 minutes." Doran chuckled. "So, what's it gonna be?" Ethan hesitated. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Soraya. She didn't say anything. She just stood beside him, looking out at the ship, at the sky, at the future stretched before them. And in that moment, Ethan knew. He turned to Doran. "How big is that ship of yours?" Doran raised a brow. "Big enough." "Why?" Ethan smiled. "Because I think we're gonna need room for two." Soraya's lips parted in surprise, but then she smiled, pure and radiant. "You're sure?" she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I don't know what's next. I don't know where we'll end up. But if you're with me," he exhaled, "then I think I might actually have a home." Soraya stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him. And for the first time, in a long time, Ethan felt like he belonged. A new journey begins. As the ship lifted off, Zephyria grew smaller beneath them. Soraya sat beside Ethan in the cockpit, her hand still in his. Doran piloted with a grin, already plotting their next destination beyond the stars. Ethan leaned back in his seat, letting out a slow breath. "So," he said, smirking, "where to next?" Soraya tilted her head. "Anywhere we want." The stars stretched endlessly before them, 1,000 possibilities waiting. And as they disappeared into the void, Ethan realized something. This wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning.